wondering how I got into this mix.
Hey everyone, this is Derrick Broze. We're here at the Nexus Earth Conference in Aspen, Colorado, and I have the pleasure of speaking with a former representative of the United States Congress, Mr. Dennis Kucinich. How are you doing?
Good to be here with you. Thank you.
Well, we just sat and listened to you talk about monetary policy, which has always been, I think, at the forte of your work, where you focus on constitutional rights, you focus on economic reform. But I want to ask you two questions that are a bit unrelated, but I think they're also important to where you focus on. For me, the first one is very important, and that's Indigenous rights and First Nations rights. And I know that you stood up and spoke against the Dakota Access Pipeline. I was there in Standing Rock 3 different times. I was actually tased for filming the police action there. And I wanted to ask, as somebody who was vocal about that and a former representative, what can our First Nations communities, Indigenous communities in the United States do to assert some sovereignty? Because, Standing Rock is really just one example of many different issues that affect Native communities, from poverty to copper mines down in Arizona, all over the place.
Uranium
mines,
right.
The nuclear waste repository in Utah that the Shoshone are fighting over there. But what other tools do we have besides trying to go through Congress, which doesn't really seem to give the Native people a voice? What advice would you have to Native communities who are concerned about their own communities and their well-being?
We need a consciousness raising in America where we go back into the history of the country and how it was founded. Because the truth of the matter is, the land was stolen from Native peoples. That needs to be made aware. And there also needs to be a cry for social and economic justice as a result of that dispossession, and as a result of the lies that that successive American administrations told to Native peoples with respect to their land, with respect to resources, with respect to opportunities, with respect to promises that they were given. It's been one big lie. That needs to be taught. We need to teach what was that land like before? What was our natural... Native peoples had a natural relationship that we could learn from today. And this needs to be taught. It needs to be part of every educational curriculum. And in addition to that, there needs to be a reconciliation that occurs through recognizing not just the injustices, but through coming up with programs that are aimed at providing restoration of the position of people. Land was stolen. Maybe you can't get the land back, but you can certainly come up with money to pay for something that was stolen. The idea of well, that was hundreds of years ago. Oh, time's an illusion when it comes to matters of the human heart. Time's an illusion when it comes to injustices that have been done to people, because each successive generation lives with the effects of that injustice. It's true of Native peoples. It's true of our brothers and sisters of color who came from Africa and the Caribbean and other places and were thrown into slavery. African Americans have a similar plight, where they were denied the fruits of their labor, and the fruits of their labor were capitalized and helped build wealth. So we first have to make sure of an awareness, because the public awareness is sketchy. And they think, well, that was so yesterday, and this is your problem now, pull yourself together. No, there has to be a way in which we recognize that to heal our country. These are wounds that cannot heal unless they're called out, unless they're identified, unless we understand the long-term damage that has been done. Look, when I ran for president in 2004, I had the opportunity to visit about 8 or 9 places where Native peoples gathered and where they lived. And I just saw systematically the effects of the dispossession, and the big economic development for Native Americans that the government went along with. Casinos. Are you kidding? I mean, yes, sure, some people could capitalize on it, but that brought in a whole new element that had nothing to do with the real underlying concerns of Native peoples.
Absolutely. We see huge poverty rates and drug use and drug abuse on the reservations.
Absolutely. I've seen it, and I know exactly what you're talking about. I went out to Standing Rock because I understood what the game was, that a frack gas infrastructure was running from Canada, across the Dakotas and into, across the Midwest, all the way out. And what's it for? So we can export gas. So we can export it. It's not for our country.
No.
It's, we have a president who says America first. No, that's easy to say, but the operative case is that a further exploitation of people have been exploited. I actually looked at the so-called studies that the government did to justify their first decision to lay the pipeline underneath the water. And you know what? They never looked at the potential for spills.
We've already seen spills before it even became operational.
But I'm the one who broke that story. I'm the one who did I did the research, and I made it an issue as a result of my work on this. But there has to be an education, and there has to be leadership from the top as well, who's ready to make that an issue of national concern. The problem is in the country today, we have so many people who are feeling dispossessed. They're not red, they're not brown, they're not black, but they happen to be white, and they are dispossessed as well. So what the political system does is it pits people against each other. Yeah. And then everyone's left out. But so we need to unite on a more fundamental level around the understanding of human unity, that we're all one, we're interconnected, we're interdependent, and an injustice to one hurts all.
Absolutely. I want to ask you, you mentioned Trump and leadership, and one of the other issues that I think is really current today is the ramping up of propaganda about the need for war with North Korea and Russia and these nations, but also the push towards talk of nuclear, again, like this nuclear buildup. And I know that this is something that you have been, I was reading today that you're actually going to be speaking at the United Nations on Tuesday about this. Could you give us maybe a short preview of what you're going to be speaking about there and your thoughts on Trump and the nuclear issue with North Korea?
An underlying quandary which we have in our country, and for that matter in the world, is dichotomous thinking. Us versus them, whoever they are. The minute that you separate the aspirations of all people, the minute that you do that, you lay the groundwork for pitting people against each other, and polarized thinking is the path to war. The instrumentalities of war become more and more sophisticated with technology. But the human heart and the human mind really haven't changed that much over the years. And so instead of relying on our technology, we have to go back to our hearts and our intellect and our spirit to identify our commonalities, to set aside these fears that we have of each other. The fear of the other is capitalized by those who want to sell arms. Yeah. And once we rediscover the potency of not only our own existence, but of that of our brothers and sisters who may happen to be a different race, color, creed, we start to understand the possibilities for bringing the world to not just a higher level of understanding, but bringing the world into prosperity. Because there shouldn't be poverty anywhere. There should not. We have the resources that are available everywhere in the world, that no one should have to live a life of poverty. But there's also a spiritual poverty that exists, which causes people to want to dominate others, to believe that they cannot truly be free unless they take away someone else's freedom. And I think, when I address the UN, I'm going to be speaking to our commonalities, to a world which is interdependent and interconnected, and how we really have to reject this type of thinking which tries to separate us.
Absolutely. Now, I know I said two questions, but this last one, this is a brief one. We're here at the conference, and you were just talking about the power of blockchain and how that, and cryptocurrency. Many people are starting to realize that it's not really about Bitcoin or even cryptocurrency, but what the potential of blockchain has and its potential uses in a number of fields. And you were talking about economic reform and how this could render, the need for these banking institutions. It basically gives some of that power back to the people, I think. And also, it seemed like that could potentially lead to the elimination of a lot of the fraud we've seen in the past. So seeing the potential for removing those centralized institutions when it comes to economics, do you think it's possible for us to attain this unity and to get out of the spiritual poverty that you speak about without the need for a government? Do you ever see that possible, or do you think government is a necessary force for our lives?
I carry with me a copy of the U.S. Constitution because, it's important to understand that it's ever aspirational. It's an unfulfilled promise. Okay, and the preamble to the Constitution is really a prayer as much as it's a flat out statement. Forming a more perfect union, establishing justice, that's a prayer. Ensuring domestic tranquility, a prayer. Providing for the common defense, well, we've gone overboard on that. We've distorted that. Promoting the general welfare, it's a prayer. And securing the blessings of liberty for ourselves and our posterity, that's a prayer. I think that government has just purposes to its existence. I do believe that the nation state itself could find itself devolving in its importance in the lives of people, but not without a society where people find a way to have a means of existence, have a means of jobs, health, education, retirement security, decent housing. These are all practical aspirations that people have. Government, in my thinking, exists to fulfill those aspirations. When it ceases to do that, per our Declaration of Independence, people have a right to abolish that government. And in some ways, people have already chosen to do that by not participating in the process anymore. They just drop out, and they basically have intentionally said, I'm not doing this anymore. I understand that. Well, what I would like to see is that we could inspire people to participate, at least on a level of their vote, to help to bring about the kind of qualitative transformation in our world, in our political structures. So does government have a role to play? I think it has a benign role to play. Right now, its role is not benign. Right now, our government in the United States is an agency for empire. It, is on a mission to try to dominate the world. And as a result, we could face the extinction not only of our country but life on a planet. So these are serious questions you're asking, and they're ones that I think a lot of people are thinking about. And I'm blessed to have an opportunity to address the world community on it, and I'm certainly going to make good use of that.
Well, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you being here. And speaking as one of the people who have dropped out and chosen to opt out, I'm 32 years old now. I've been paying attention for the last 9 years or so, and to people like Ron Paul and yourself. And for me, I find I feel like I vote every single day with my actions by what I do in my community, the way I contribute to my community, and encouraging people to find financial freedom, to find community power and local power, and like we were talking about with the hurricane, to come together and show that we can take care of ourselves in the absence of a centralized power, be it a bank or a government. And I definitely think that for me is the answer, but I'm thankful that there are people like yourself who have chosen to go the political route and spread a good message. So thank you.
Thank you. Good luck.